Mhm. I'll do it like this. Hello, Elly.
Hello.
I watched your lectures, read your interviews, and your optimism about life is, I have to admit, it's remarkable. It inspires. So this is a great honor to speak to you.
It's a
And
pleasure.
we are talking with you today, on the subject of the Holocaust. So you and your family survived Dachau and Kovno ghetto. You lived through the horror of Holocaust, and you kept your optimism, which is amazing. And how are you managing it? Like, for example, when I read stories about the Holocaust, I actually have, difficult time not losing faith in humanity, even temporary, right? So
Yeah,
like I start to doubt, like, if the human were able to commit such crimes, like how can we live in this world?
it,
So how did you cope with this?
it was very difficult, of course, but you are questioning how I cope with it now,
Mhm.
because then I just had to cope. I had to survive. I did my best.
Yes, yes.
Human beings are very strong, If they don't kill them, they can survive a lot. But
Hmm.
there comes a time after total hunger and disease that you just die. And sometimes you are ready to die. You give up. And when you give up, you die very quickly.
Yes.
So it's difficult to survive, but most people who don't get killed either by somebody or by disease try to survive. Their body wants to live.
Yeah, so it's like, it's in our DNA in a way.
Yeah.
Well, I think some people have more in their DNA than, the rest of them. You at the age of 90, at the age of
92,
85, you did skydiving, didn't you?
89. I was 89 when it was Canada's 150th birthday. And the CBC said, "What are you doing to remember our birthday?" And I wrote to them and I said, "I'm going to jump from an aeroplane for the first time, and I'm 89." So they came to see and they photographed me, and it was a whole deal.
Yeah, but
If you
it's
want to see
amazing.
the picture, I can show you the picture. Would you like
Yeah,
to see the
yeah,
picture?
yes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have to get it. Just a
No, no,
moment.
no, don't get me.
You,
I'll get it from you later and we'll show it. Yeah?
okay, I'll send you
Oh,
the pictures.
yeah, yes. And but still, I mean, you mentioned I watched one of your lectures, your meeting with a
Yes.
student at the university. You mentioned that, for some time you even were neighbor to the director of Dachau Ghetto in Toronto. Tell
Yeah.
us the story. How did it feel, when you found out?
It's wonderful to see some people who are there. And we have a big group here in Toronto of survivors. And some of them have been in Dachau and some have been in Auschwitz, most of them, and in other places from Budapest, from all over Europe. So we have a big crowd here because Toronto had the biggest number of survivors coming here in Canada. We had a big lot, about 60,000, 6,000, I think, came. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
So we had a big crowd here. Now we have much fewer.
Yeah, I know, I know. Elly, after the war, you lived in Germany until 1947. Then,
That's
as a
correct.
refugee, you went to Norway, right?
Yeah.
With the family, and Zimbabwe,
And we stayed
Zimbabwe,
in, I'm sorry.
to Zimbabwe, to Africa, to
Yeah,
Zimbabwe.
we went to Africa after that.
And well, first of all, I'm just curious, like, how did you reunite with your mother? Like, what was how did you manage to find each other after the war? Okay, you were liberated. You were with
Yeah,
your
we,
father in Dachau, but
yeah.
your mom and your
My
cousins were
aunt,
somewhere else.
they were in Stutthof on
Hmm.
the Polish border. And we found them after the war, about 2 months or 3 months after the war, because they were 500 miles away in a hospital, but they used to circulate names of people who survived from one center to another all over Germany. So every day we used to,
It was, yeah.
typed pages.
Mhm.
They used to type 10 copies, so you could hardly read it, but everybody went down to read the arrival lists to find somebody. And one day we found my mother and my aunt in the hospital.
And what did you do?
Then my uncle, two of my uncles traveled to them with trains. It was very difficult. The trains were without glass in the windows, you know, it was cold, but they traveled and they got them back to us. So now we were together.
And what was the economics of the daily life? You were liberated, you were malnutrition, you probably stayed in the hospital for a while, and then, but like, where did you get like money to buy food, to buy tickets?
I'll tell you, we were supplied. I mean, we stayed in the hospital, father and I, 6 months.
Yes.
Until I got from 70 pounds. I weighed, after I liberated from Dachau, I was liberated, I weighed 70 pounds. And after 6 months, I weighed 140 pounds. But we used to get food parcels every 2 weeks from UNRWA, United Nations for Refugees.
Refugees, yeah.
And they put us up after the hospital. We stayed like in a camp. I went to Landsberg am Lech in Germany, and I stayed there. It was a big camp there, but they had schools there. And I wanted to be an engineer since I was 13. My dream was to be an engineer and a pilot when I was 13 years old.
You fulfilled both dreams.
Yeah, I fulfilled both. The second thing in Canada. But in Germany, after I stopped hating people, I was full of hate. I was ready to kill people when I came out of hospital, to kill Germans, quite frankly. And then after a while, I freed myself from that dream, from that desire for vengeance.
Revenge, yeah.
And when I freed myself, I started to live for the first time. You know, hatred is a terrible thing. Hatred fills the whole brain, no space for anything else. Yes. And I like to quote a Buddha who said 2,700 years ago, he said, to hate is like taking poison and hoping the other would die. But the other won't die. He's not even thinking about you. So I separate in my mind hatred from forgiveness. I don't have to forgive, but I don't hate.
Very good. You also told the story about the former director, the Nazi director of the Corner Ghetto, lived next to you in Toronto for a few years, right? He was the first Canadian citizen to be convicted, to be sent back to Germany for the trial.
Helmut Raucher. Helmut Raucher. He was in Toronto. He lived in Toronto and nearby for 32 years in Canada. The man who is a killer. He killed my best friend Itamar Shapiro and his family personally. He shot them in the back of the head. It's a long story, but I mean, that was a war criminal who had a wonderful life in Canada for 32 years.
Did you meet him in Canada or not?
No, I did not meet him. I could have found him in 5 minutes. The RCMP, the police, couldn't find him for 32 years. His name was in the phone book in Toronto under his own name.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Tell me about the ghetto life. I know that in ghetto, you read Pushkin, you read Leo Tolstoy. You basically stole these books because, you know, although you were told by Nazis to surrender the books, right? You stole them, so it was dangerous, and you kept them and you read them. So what it was like to read Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace? when you were in the major, kind of crisis, which is described, similar to
It
the one.
was wonderful. It was wonderful to read. First of all, I knew several languages. I spoke Yiddish at home, and my parents spoke Russian very well because Russia occupied Lithuania for 150 years before the First World War. So my parents both went to high school in Russian, and my father studied engineering in St. Petersburg.
Oh,
So they spoke Russian very well. So when they didn't want me to understand, they spoke Russian. And how long do you think it took me to learn Russian? No time at all. But
no,
I
yeah,
kept quiet. I didn't tell them. I wanted to know what they are saying.
yeah.
When I was 10 years old, they discovered, to their total surprise, the kid speaks Russian. What
Yeah,
a miracle.
you knew their secret language.
So
Yeah,
I knew Russian to speak, but I didn't know to read much in Russian because it wasn't a subject at
of
school
education. Yeah.
until 1940.
Mhm.
So I started to read Russian seriously, and I loved it. I loved the language. I loved Pushkin.
Mhm.
I still remember poems right now, 60 years, 70 years later.
Well, I can imagine. Well, it was important period of your life. So yes.
I
Uh,
loved Pushkin. I loved Pushkin. Oh, it was so wonderful. You know,
uh,
I,
you
yeah,
showed, you were talking about forgiveness and hate, which destroys you. You found some of your mates. You worked in the metal workshop in the concentration camp, right?
yeah.
And there was a secret photograph, which you probably, we can show it later to our viewers. But basically, taken secretly. Why it was taken secretly? Because it was nobody wanted to. Why this photograph was taken secretly? Can you tell me the story?
Well, you are not allowed to have a camera in the ghetto. They took away all our cameras. When they first put us in the ghetto, 30,000 people, they went door to door and they confiscated all our possessions, money, silver, gold, jewelry, furs, cameras, radios. They took it all away.
And
After that,
books.
they said, now you must bring all your books. And
Yes.
we went to the center to deliver our books. But when my father came there and he saw that no guards, nobody is watching, he started to take books and put in the wheelbarrow. And we went back home with a full wheelbarrow of the best books. And we went back 7 times. We stole a whole new second library. And my father loved books. He had a lot of books. So now we had 2 libraries, his old one and the new one.
Very
And
good.
I hid it all. I had to hide it. Outside the house was a barn, and the barn had a big garden barn. And on the ceiling there were boards like a ceiling. He said, put them over there on top. If anybody finds it, it's not ours. We don't know who.
Yeah.
And that is
Of
where I
course.
had my library. And I
Very.
had Russian and German, Yiddish and Lithuanian. But the Yiddish literature I knew very well by the time I was 13, and the
Uh,
Lithuanian as well.
yes.
But Russian and German I could speak, but I didn't know the literature. And now was my chance. So I read, and it
So,
was
so
it was
on
wonderful.
that photograph, taken at the metal workshop,
Oh yes,
none of you look into the camera. Why is that?
because when this was a Jewish engineer, a very brave guy, he kept his camera, his Leica. So he arrived one day, he opened his jacket, and there was a camera. And I said, oh my God, if they catch him, they'll hang him and we will have to come and watch, which happened. He said, guys, don't look at me. If they find a picture, I don't want them to know that you knew that I'm photographing you. So we
Yes.
all looked on the work, and then he took the picture and he disappeared. He
And
made most of the pictures in the ghetto,
yes.
and
So
he buried
sometime
them.
later, Toronto Star published this photograph, And you found out that your mates in this photographs survived the Holocaust as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And you had a little reunion in Tel Aviv, right?
Yes, I went to Tel Aviv to meet him. I was amazed. One of my students.
Yes. And like talking about this feeling of forgiveness and hatred, did you talk like how you can cope with this? Like you went through some major tragedy, you know, in a way. Did you discuss the
I gave a lot of thought to that because nobody helped me. Nobody helped me. We used to sit, all of our survivors, talking, what are we going to do to the Germans? What are we going to do to the Lithuanians? Whatever. We had complaints because they killed us.
yes.
And I had to work it out. I realized that my head is all in hate and not in myself. And I
Mhm.
gave it up. I said, you don't know whom to kill. You can't kill innocent people. I asked myself, are you a killer? Are you really ready to go up to a person and kill them? And I realized that I'm not a killer. I don't want to kill people. And that is when I gave it up. But what's important to understand is that sometimes people say, oh, Mr. Gotz, you are so forgiving. I wasn't forgiving. I didn't forgive anybody.
You didn't
Only the
focus on
people,
hatred.
you only have to forgive people when they ask you for forgiveness, you know?
Right. So
The-
you didn't focus on hatred. You know, you
yeah,
kind of blocked the hatred.
I
So
used to push my head away like that. Like I used
yeah,
to turn my head when I used to start thinking about it. And
right.
that is when I remembered I want to be an engineer and I haven't got high school. So I hid the books. I started to learn. I studied. I worked very hard. And I
Yeah.
also took a course in electronics to repair radios. So now I had two
Two professions.
professions. I was
Very
a
good.
mechanic and I was a radio
And a pilot as
repairman.
well. And a pilot.
Yeah.
So tell me, like you live in Canada. Canada is very tolerant country, but still we do have outbursts of anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and all this, you know, terrible behavior. So like, what is your advice? How do you deal with anti-Semitism, you know, nowadays?
I have to deal and recognize racism, not only anti-Semitism against Jews, but racism in general. And I
Yes.
have to speak against it. But Canada is much better than it used to be. I mean, a mere 50 or 60 years ago, there was still much more anti-Semitism. There were signs by the beach that Jews and dogs are not allowed and all that kind of thing.
Seriously? In
So
Canada?
yeah, in Canada, on the beaches, there was a sign. I've seen a photograph of it. Jews and dogs not allowed. It was, Canada was a very self-conscious, racist society in a way. It was very sort of focused on one religion, for example. Catholicism wasn't as welcome as
So and
Protestantism.
how do you deal with this? Like you were the victim of this going to the extreme lengths and
When I
like
came in 1964, it was better. It was much
Mhm.
better. I have not experienced any overt anti-Semitism myself in Canada in 64 years. How
Mhm.
long? I came in 1964. So 1960, it's 40, it's 60. Yeah, it's about 60 years. I have not experienced open anti-Semitism. But sometimes it comes out in funny ways. One day, a man was whom I employed in my company said to me, I sold my boat, but I didn't get enough money. The guy Jewed me down. So I
Yeah.
said, that's not nice to say. He said, why? I said, Jews Jewed me down? Only Jews deal
Not
badly with
good. Yeah.
people? Oh, he said, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't realize I was saying it.
Of course.
He says, you know, I'll say he gypped me. I said, that's also not good. He says, why not? I said, because only gypsies take money. Oh, he said, I don't know what to say now. I
So
say
I guess
just,
like you're, so like, how do you deal with like, what will be your advice? Like, what if you were to tell to the world, like, do that? What would you do to stop anti-Semitism, racism,
get to know,
prejudice?
get to know the people. We are now getting in Canada a lot of refugees from all over the world. I say, I'm not asking you to love them. I ask you to be curious about them. Find out who they are. Get to know them personally. You'll discover the common humanity. The whole thing of imagining what Jews are, the Jews control the world, or the ridiculous ideas that they have, it comes from 2,000 years of hatred. From the story that Jews were drinking the blood of Christians. I mean, it's terrible to think about it.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Give it up. Don't listen to it and stand up. Don't be a bystander. When you
So,
see injustice, you must stand up and object.
okay, another advice. What are the most important things in life we shall never forget about in our daily life?
The most important thing is to be curious, curious about everything that is around you. You know, I'm an inventor. I create new products. I invent new things. I write patents, whatever. It all comes from not being satisfied with what you see when you see
Yeah,
something wrong. Be curious. Isn't there a better solution? Haven't somebody got an answer? In that case, I have an answer. So I create new things. If
that's
you are
true. That's true.
curious, then you want to find out.
Mhm.
But people who accept racism or ignorance or opinion about not getting injected because you are afraid that there's something that Microsoft is going to put a chip in your skin.
With
I
the
mean,
vaccine,
ridiculous
yeah,
ideas. Where does it all come from? If you are curious, you can find out the truth. You can find out what is real.
very nice. Thank you very much.
I'm delighted to be with you.
Me too. But I'm going to ask you a couple more questions because I don't know how long, like I watched the time, but maybe because of translation, it will be a little bit different.
Yeah,
So, so I will ask you a couple more questions. Can I?
sure, sure.
So, tell me, Elly, like what was the, like, economics of the daily life more? Like you found your family, then you heard back that you have extended family members in Africa.
Yeah.
Like how would you travel? What would you take? How would you plan the routes? Like nowadays we go on computer and everything is done electronically. Back
It was
then,
very difficult. It was very difficult. We had no money. We were
yeah.
in Norway. We were living in free housing. We were given food. We were treated like refugees that have nothing, and we had nothing. The
Mhm.
relatives in Africa wanted to bring us out, and they had money. And South Africa said, no Jews and no Catholics. We were in good company. But the uncle in South Africa wrote to my father, who asked him for money for me, because he said, my son wants to be an engineer and he has to work. Send some money. And he said, I can't send money. But if you come to Africa, I will make sure that your son can go to university. And
That's
that
very
is
good.
why we said we want to go. We went to the shipping. Two
Yeah.
years were filled, the ships were booked. So we wrote to uncle, we can't get a ship. He said, I'll send you an airline ticket. And that is the first time I went on an airplane.
Oh my God.
That was an amazing flight. We flew from Oslo to Tunis in the middle of winter in November. And in Tunis, it was
Warm.
summer and oranges. I smelled the oranges in the air. And from Tunis to Kano, Nigeria. And in Nigeria, it was raining and the drops were dropping on the ground, on the tarmac, and it was immediately dry.
Amazing.
And that's the first time I saw a crocodile.
Oh my God.
I saw a crocodile. We found a relative in Kano in Nigeria. not in Canada, no, in Elizabethville, in Belgian Congo. The third stop was Elizabethville.
Mhm.
And my mother had a relative there. He was with the American Army, and he took us for dinner. We sat in a restaurant outdoors, and below was the crocodiles in the river.
My God, that's
Later,
very.
I became a crocodile hunter. You know, I was shooting crocodiles myself in Africa.
My God. And how did you end up with, like, how did you choose to come to Canada, like from Zimbabwe and Canada?
From Zimbabwe, we went to Johannesburg, where my wife came from. I got married there, and we had 3 children. And I said to her, let's get out of Africa. We couldn't stand South Africa. We were not happy there. The
Mhm.
political situation was terrible. Apartheid, the hatred, the unfriendly way they treated Black people was terrible. I couldn't live with it. So we started to look for a good country. Canada, United States,
But
England.
how would you look? What was the process? Like now we go on Facebook or, you know, on the internet, do research or ask people. You, books, newspapers.
Books. We were reading books. We were reading books. We had to read.
Very
We
nice.
read up on Australia, and we decided we don't want to go to Australia. It's too close to China. And
Mhm.
England, you have to be rich or else it's hard to live there. So
Yeah.
Canada and America, and the Canadian papers came first. So we went to Canada.
All right. Interesting. Very nice. Thank you.
I
Wow. No,
saw a film, you know, I saw a film of Canada in South Africa. I saw the park, the beautiful park, and a canoe going on the water, and a moose was standing there. And I said, oh, I want to go to that country.
Well, that's Banff. Have you been in Banff since then?
I've been everywhere. I've been camping in every part of Canada, so to speak. I used to go every weekend in Ontario from Toronto with the children to go out in the bush all the time.
My
I had a
God.
canoe, I had a camp, a tent, I had everything.
Okay. Another question. You seem like you fulfilled all your dreams, childhood dreams, and continue to do that. So in your golden age, right? What they call. So what is the recipe? Like, you sound very young. So what is the recipe to keep it young and to achieve everything what you want?
Curiosity. I'm very curious. I'm reading all 3 newspapers in Toronto every day. I have more time now. I'm retired. I read about science. I read about politics. I want to know. I sit on the computer for hours reading.
Very
And
good.
from that reading, that's a great satisfaction because I find out things. Then I can explore more what interests me. I'm still very interested in science, in engineering. I get magazines.
My God, very good, very good. Elly, if you can send me the, you know, if you can share with me like the photo of you, I can take it from the website as well, just myself. You have it on the website, you skydiving.
Yeah.
And also maybe this photo from the metal shop, metal workshop in concentration camp. That I don't have on the website.
I will send you a picture. I'll send it to you. I'll send you a couple of pictures of myself and of different stages, what you saw in the presentation.
Perfect. And I'm going to send you the link once it's ready. In a couple of weeks, we will air it. So I'll tell you, you'll be able to, but yeah, it's very inspiring. It's a very cool story. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Igor. All the best.
You too. Thank you
До
very much.
свидания.
До свидания.
Очень хорошо.
Спасибо. До свидания.